This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Is there a problem?
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Relax. I can fix it.
For what it's worth, I've got a good feeling about this.
Yeah!
Aloha, and welcome to another Ninth Island RC. As you can see, I've got the Rlaarlo AK-917 on the table, and going to go over today the problems with the vehicle, and thankfully there actually are not many. But before I do, I actually want to cover something that I've noticed, not so much in my channel, but I've read a lot of comments in other channels and in forums, and there are a lot of people that are bashing Rlaarlo purely because they didn't get the vehicles shipped when they said. Now, if it had been, say, Traxxas or Axial or Red Cat or even X-Ray, Techno, any of the major players. Now, if they're late by a few days, they promise they're going to ship by such and such a date, and they don't get it shipped till a week later, no one really cares. They know that they're going to produce great products, and they understand, although maybe there was a production run problem, or there was a problem they discovered they're fixing it. So no one would really care. But with Rlaarlo, for some reason, just because they're shipping later than what they originally stated, you've got a lot of people putting them down, claiming that Rlaarlo is stealing their money, just all sorts of stuff, not even bothering to consider the truth. The truth is that they sent out pre-production units to a lot of people, and as I mentioned in the previous video, they were partly tasked with finding problems, reporting it back to Rlaarlo, so that Rlaarlo could fix those problems. And that is exactly the reason for the delay, because there were problems discovered. There were some problems with the ESC, the motor, other aspects, how the wiring for the taillights and such ran, things like that. And so Rlaarlo is putting forth their best possible effort to get these problems fixed before they start shipping the production units to everyone. Again, if it was any of the major names, no one would be complaining. I mean, it's just because Rlaarlo is a fairly new company. I think that's the only reason why people are complaining, or as I call it, complaining for no other purpose than to complain. So, for those of you who've ordered and are getting restless, and this is primarily to people who seem to have little patience, and my apologies for having to word it that way, but that's honestly the only way I can do it. Have a little patience. They are working hard on getting the orders shipped. And some people have even in other, comments that I've made in other YouTube channels and such, I've had some people actually accuse me of being on their payroll and, saying the things that I'm saying because I'm making money from them. No, I'm not. I have no financial connection whatsoever to Rlaarlo or any other RC manufacturer. My channel is not monetized. I am not sponsored by Rlaarlo or any other RC company. I do this for the pure enjoyment of just enjoying RC. I have no other, no reason to lie. I have no reason to put forth any untruths. I will be completely honest in my videos. If I think something is truly bad, I will easily say it. If I think something is truly great, I will also say that. So with that being said, let's get into, but before I do, I just wanted to, show some of the changes I've made to the body. Really not much. I've peeled off some of the Rlaarlo stickers. And then, I've definitely given this a Gulf Racing theme. Now it's what they designed it to resemble, and now it truly is. And yes, I know the real Porsche 917s didn't have a Gulf sticker here. They had the number just as you see on the doors, and I believe it was actually even the same size. And then this one was a little smaller. So what I did was I removed the white dot sticker that was here. It's now there, since there was an actual number there. Most of the rest of it is fairly faithful to what some of them were. If you look it up, you'll know that number 2, the number 2 Porsche 917 was probably the most winning of all of the Gulf Racing Porsche 917s. So, problems. One that many people are already knowing about is the rear exhaust. When they get received, it's broken. And matter of fact, at one point when I was working, although only half of it was broken, the other half broke. And yes, they are sending me a replacement, but honestly, at this point, I don't even think I'm going to install it. As a matter of fact, I've already removed the LED for the exhaust, and I may even remove the LED for the taillights. I haven't decided yet. But, that's a problem. It's a very minor problem. It's a quality control issue. And really, it's something that, a new company will take some time to work on. Matter of fact, if you think about Traxxas and Tamiya, or, Tamiya, whatever, you'll know that they weren't producing top quality products when they first hit the market. So why does somebody expect a new company to come out with perfect products to start with? It's not realistic. It's understood, or at least it should be understood, that they are going to have some problems. And they will work on them, and they will fix them. And that is exactly what Rlaarlo is already doing. That's, again, why there was a delay on shipping these. So, again, they're working on it. So, don't worry about it. They will get it fixed. So, moving on. You see I've got a loose screw here still. And I'm working. So at this point, I've actually gone over pretty much the entire vehicle. I've pretty much found all the problems. As I said in the first video, check all your screws, because I found more screws that did not have Loctite, or ones that were going into plastic that were not totally tightened. So, that is being worked on. That's all I can say is just check all your screws first. Some of these are loose purposely because I'm still working on the vehicle, but check all your screws, make sure they are tight. If they go into metal, check them for Loctite. The differentials. Now, I know at least one YouTuber who had early one. He had checked the front but not the rear, and he said that at least it was properly greased. He didn't check the actual diff inside, at least as far as I know, but he said, in testing it, it seemed to be full and it seemed to be appropriate. But when I checked, the rear diff I found had absolutely no grease on the ring gear, and the front had, when I say a dab, I literally mean a dab. It was, as far as I'm concerned, neither of them were greased. But it's an easy fix. You can put on your own grease. It's not a problem. Matter of fact, I use the Maxima waterproof grease. This stuff is fantastic. I know a lot of other RCers that use this. You can use it on your bicycle. You can use it on your motorcycle. It is a synthetic grease. It is not a petroleum-based grease, so you can use it on plastic. It's not going to cause any problems. As for the diffs themselves, when I checked the rear diff, it definitely seemed full, so no problem there. The front diff, on the other hand, it definitely did not seem full. I opened it up and I discovered it was basically only about 25% full. So took care of that. The other thing I noticed was in terms of diff fluid weight. Now, when you're running something like a buggy, which is what Rlaarlo has previously mostly made, it is common to have a heavier diff fluid, a thicker diff fluid in the rear, a lighter in the front. But when it comes to speed run cars, drag cars, it's usually the opposite. You want the heavier, thicker diff fluid in the front. So what I noticed was that they put the diffs in with fluid based on a four-wheel drive buggy, or short course truck, truggy. So you may want to check, you should check those. And if you discover that the front has a lighter diff fluid than the rear, it's easy enough to just swap them. I have not done that yet, but I will be soon. My first concern was just filling the diff and getting it correct. When I filled it, I believe I topped it off with 500,000, but it's still, even with 500,000, it is still much lighter than the rear. So I figure they put in at least 1 million, possibly 2 or 2.5. I don't know. I have contacted them to find out what the diff fluid weights used are and also what the shock oil weights are. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me on that. But again, you may want to flip them. Speaking of the shocks, as I may have mentioned in the first video, this shock was not totally filled or properly bled. In opening it, it was not filled. It was basically about half full. Not knowing the shock weights or shock oil weights, what I did, at least temporarily, you're gonna notice that the shocks are not the shocks that came on it. These are the shocks that I had on my Fortec 3.0 speedrun car. Yes, I was basically taking a Fortec 3.0, the Corvette Stingray, and turning it into a speedrun car. So these shocks are already tuned for a 10th scale speedrun car. Granted, the Fortec is a little heavier, so I will work on that later. But at least at this point, they should be properly tuned. And the best part was that the Fortec 3.0 shocks have the exact same extended length as the AK-917 shocks. The only difference is in compression. The 917 shocks that Rlaarlo put on have 11.25 millimeters of compression, and these have 6.5 millimeters. So I actually think that may be a benefit, because with the other ones, fully pressed up, the tire is just barely, that's what allows the chassis to scrape. So this is actually, that being that it does not compress as much, even fully compressed, you end up with basically about a little less than 1 cent. About, I'd say, I haven't actually measured it, but I would estimate about 0.75 centimeter of space between the ground and the chassis. So these, I think, are actually going to work out much better than the stock shocks. Honestly, other than that, I really did not find any other problems. Rlaarlo seems to have done an extremely great job. Now, one thing you will notice is that I have removed all of the brake calipers, and I am actually going to be removing these brake hub, hex hub thing, whatever you want to refer to them as. They're very loose. They are not, attached to the axle stubs. It is the pressure of the wheels and the wheel nuts that hold the hex in place. And what I recommend, and something I will be mentioning in the next video, is that I would recommend, going with aluminum clamping style hexes. It's not enough to be aluminum, but clamping style. Rlaarlo included extra hexes, just plain ones, but they are plastic. They will eventually strip. It's not a good choice. Aluminum, when you're using, especially with aluminum wheels, you definitely want aluminum hex. And even if you're going to be switching to the plastic wheels, something I also cover in the next video, you still want to use the aluminum hexes. If you have plastic and plastic, it's just going to strip even faster. And then, as I mentioned in the previous video, the rear wheel. some people had wanted to remove it, saying, it's too much weight for the rear. But as I mentioned, when you remove it, this whole rear piece just really moves. So to me, that is also a problem, but it is one that is easily fixed, honestly. Order the plastic wheels with the tires already mounted and replace this with one of those. No problem anymore. Problem fixed. That will lower the weight in the rear. It'll still provide the stability that it needs to be. And actually, if you're wondering what I'm checking right now, it's because, these wheels, I thought they were directional, but in reality, they're actually not. So, this can be used on either side. I thought it could only be used on one side because I thought that the tires were directional. Turns out they are not. So this can actually be used on either side. But, there you have it. That's really it. There really are not any serious problems. If you want to consider the diffs, the ring gears not having been greased, that is about the most serious problem that there is on this vehicle. And again, it is something that is very easily fixed. I have not come across any problem that could not be fixed super easily by the end user. So again, there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of problems with the 917. I'm just having a little problem getting the body on. There we go. Oh, speaking of which, you notice there's no front. It's because I haven't finished putting it together, and oh, there's my front bumper, front body posts. So until next time, mahalo. And in that next video, I will be covering replacement parts as well as recommended upgrade parts.